Welcome to the Lost Signals Reviews, the American Film Institute's Top 100, where we critique the supposed 100 greatest American movies of all time. Join us as we decide if they're worthy of the Mott's Top 100.
Or Mott's. Welcome back to the the Lost Signals Reviews, the AFI. Today we're doing Sunrise, A Tale of Two Humans.
No.
What number on the AFI was it?
Number 82.
82, I believe.
82. Yes. This is a silent film, and I'm just going to give it a quick impression on it, that I can see why it's on the AFI, even if I didn't particularly enjoy it.
Yes,
My
share
name
that
is
sentiment.
Jonathan E. Manzer, here with Stephen Mosi. Son of a bitch. And Scott Lillo.
Never get off the boat, either in Apocalypse Now or in the country of New York.
So I'm going to give the funny logline for this. Nobody speak. Everyone still gets choked.
Yeah.
All right, and Scott, would you like to take us into the plot?
Sure. So as you mentioned, it is a silent film from 1927, I believe, and it actually is a quite long one. It's like an hour and 40 maybe. So it's the story of a farmer and his wife who have, I guess, like, they live on a remote rural area where sometimes in the season, tourists from the city come and visit. And they've already set up that apparently he's been having somewhat of an affair with a city woman who did not leave with the rest of the tourists in the season. So she wants him to get rid of his wife in a boating accident. He agrees to do that and almost does, but then through sheer bumbling luck and also her realizing what's happening, doesn't. Then they go off on a whirlwind tour adventure through the city and realize they love each other again. It gets a little odd. We'll go thematically in a second, but is what happens. They go to a restaurant, they go to a church, and they have a nice time. And then they decide to stay together. He rows her back, and like foreshadowing / ironic twist, she falls out of the boat. But there is a Chekhov's item, which we'll mention. So he thinks she's dead, but nope, last second, the villagers found her, she's okay, and they're happily together, and the woman from the city sort of grumpily goes back to the city and moves away and leaves the country.
To a much better place.
After being nearly choked, yeah.
Yes.
To death. Twice. So this is like a more murdery version of that Pina Colada song. Like the husband is really,
If you
the
like
husband's
Pina
really
Coladas,
like
is the name
into
of that
cheating
song.
on his wife, and then they like discovered that they're perfect for each other through.
They rediscovered their
stupid
love, I thought.
fucking circumstances.
Look, here's the thing, is occasionally, the love falls flat.
Need something to spice it up.
Yeah, you
Like
bring in a
plotting
third
to murder
party.
your wife.
No, well, some people are into the choke thing. Some people are into the three-way. You know what? They end up happy at the end, and that's all that really matters.
My
isn't it?
favorite part is that the same afternoon that he has tried to murder her on a boat and throw her body off of it, they are like, "Oh, we love each other like super hard again. It's like we were just married."
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Because he says twice, "Don't run from me," and then they go see a wedding.
Love isn't
crash a
supposed to make sense. Love is emotion, and she almost got killed. She went through the grieving process. I think all 5 stages in maybe 5 minutes, and then we see this wedding. We see what we used to have, and they actually do.
They set it up.
They do set it up. They do show a flashback of how they used to have passion, and then you see the passion's gone. They had a kid. I mean, that's what happens. They're on a farm.
Mm-hmm.
I really wish that they could somehow remove all elements of narrative from this and show the movie that is just the absolutely phenomenal cinematography and music and really interesting ways of, like, I'm not sure how many movies had flashbacks before 1927, but this one did them like really perfectly. There was like overlays of,
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah.
there was one scene where, I mean, I guess we'll get into this more in style, but
I was gonna
like,
say that's a lot of style, but yes.
Because the fucking plot sucks. It's so goddamn stupid. It
seems immature at this point.
It's the dumbest of dumbed down, like,
Tale-
reconciliation tales.
Tell two humans.
and it makes everybody look like really shitty and dumb. I think.
So if this was a movie about a couple from a farm taking a vacation to the city to rekindle their romance, it would all make sense.
If you gave up the part about he was about to fucking murder her before they went and did that, it would actually. It's a 5-minute rewrite, and this movie is a lot better.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is.
Well, I agree with most of it. Yeah, I mean, I definitely see what you're saying, and I felt that throughout. So, let's go to scores for a second, because now you guys might have to convince me that I was going to give it an alright 2. I could go down to a 1 because, yes, you said bare bones, and it was handled a little, like, clumsily, but the only defense I'll make is that it's a sign of the times. It's early on in the days of film. They're figuring it out, right? So, like, that's the only argument against that.
There are surely... Well, go ahead.
There is a caveat to go into. You can see how this film influenced... Like, you know how they say that Citizen Kane is... If people watch it now, like, oh, what was special about it?
Yeah.
No, it innovated a lot of things. And I think that this, in a similar way, innovated narrative and... Though it's very simple for us now, it was...
At the time, I'm sure it was pretty impressive.
I will say this, to bring it to proportionality, which we did recently.
Yes.
He does have the arc of wanting to kill his wife, falling in love with her again, and then getting punished by the very same act that he was going to commit.
Yeah, like I said, it makes sense.
Yeah, it's a happy ending at the end, but I think that was it wouldn't have worked as a film if it didn't have that last scene, even though it's...
The uncertainty when she's...
Not a particularly great, not a really complex narrative.
Although, you know what? I think that's really fascinating. I think that it would have... I'm surprised in terms of, like, having seen films from this era, and even, like, up through now, the way that narrative usually works, I'm very surprised that they had that in there at all. This movie could have easily ended with, like, a placid boat ride back from the city, and, like, oh, now they're in love again.
Would you have thought that was better, though, than what is in the film? Like, what are you saying? What do you mean?
I mean, no, I don't think either one of them are all that great.
Okay.
But yeah, it is interesting. I do like that they tried to give that, there is a, like, without it being absolutely necessary, there is this, like, attempt to provide some narrative closure on the storyline that was opened up, and, like, to provide some ironic element to it as well, which I think as much as I don't really like the narrative of this movie, I think that is an interesting thing, because it could have been a lot, it would have been very easy to end this when they leave the city.
And have left a lot of loose threads.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think it would have tied everything up. All you have to do is write in the end of the woman from the city, gets sick of waiting or something, or she's in the city and, like, sees them together. And
well, they kind of do that with the manicurist,
yeah,
where he has his moment of temptation, and he, over dramatically because it's a silent film,
sure, but
rejects
it's
a similar type of woman,
right?
But I feel that they go to the lengths of having him atone for what he did, and even if it didn't work particularly well, I think I'm going to give it a. It's sign of the time, so I'm giving it a 2 based on what I think that it created in its moment.
Added to.
Yeah.
I could be like a 1.5, which means I could easily round it up or down. So, what do you think, Steve, at this point?
I think I'm gonna go with a 1 on this. I was honestly contemplating a 0 for a little bit. I mean, it doesn't deserve that, I don't think, but I think I'm gonna go with a 1 on it, just because it really is. It was, like, throughout the whole movie while I was watching it, I was like, this is nonsense. Like, this doesn't make any sense. And there are certainly movies, I will say, I get what you mean, it's a sign of the times, but I will say there are movies that do plot in 1927 better than this one, I think.
I agree.
From that era. We've watched comedies that, Charlie Chaplin movies that do a lot better job than this.
I think it's easier to do a long-form comedy in silence than it is to do a drama in silence, though.
I mean, I guess so, but I've definitely seen other silent films that I think do a better job of. I don't think that
Getting
the
it
plot
across.
is the strength of this movie, and I think that like kind of rankled me as I was watching. So I'm gonna go ahead and give it a 1. I understand why you're giving it a 2, and I get that. And I'm not gonna try and convince you otherwise, but I'm gonna stick with a 1.
I think I might also what you said there at the bit at the end where plot isn't the strongest point of this movie. Like other elements, I think succeeded. So I think I'm gonna go with round it down to a 1, and a pretty solid, okay 1, but just not enough for a 2 for me in this instance.
Gotcha.
Now what?
Okay,
It's
it's
writing
on
shit
to
down.
me. It's on to me with themes. Brothers and sisters. Husband and wife. Husband, do not fall under the spell of the temptress, the harlot, the slattern.
Jesus Christ.
Because she will not love you like your wife loves you. In fact, to read from the book of Kanye West, she is a gold digger, way over the town, and she digs on thee.
Chapter 1, verse 2. I remember that one.
A wife, if your husband does stray, do not hate him, do not punish him, because he knows not what he is doing. He is being enraptured by the evil woman from the city. Find love in God and the purity of marriage. And I believe that's what the theme of this work is.
Oh man, it's a deeper theme than I thought the movie had. Like, certainly they're going for something. If you noticed, at the very beginning, it said in the credits, based on an original theme by whatever. I was like, this is an original theme? Seems like one of the oldest themes you could possibly tell a story of two humans, if you will. Even subtitle it that, or, you know what I mean? Like, so I don't know. Yes, certainly it's there. Like, you said it probably more poetically than the movie ever did, even in its silent, like, portrayal of it. But, like, yeah, I guess, like, you know, life's messy and you're married and you're having an affair and then it's like a Murder, She Wrote plot or something. Like, I don't know.
Yes, it is almost a murder.
Like Columbo should show
Yeah.
up and try and solve this mystery.
Right?
So
So,
if
like,
he had killed her,
Right.
a character like that would have showed up.
Yeah.
I know. So, like, I don't know, man. Like, maybe it just rubs me the way it comes across. Like, certainly that's the theme they want it to get, I think, and the intention of it. But I don't know if I necessarily like it. I don't think, or agree with it. Also, certainly not. But should I fault it for that? Or, like, I think it achieved what it wanted to with what it set out with its material. So that's where I'm standing on it. I'm unsure about
Where
this
I'm going
one.
to argue is that, and it was also an argument made during the plot, is even though I disagree with him, in modern day sensibility, we have a more individualistic measure to how we should
Sure.
exist. Where then it was more like, let's stay together even through the hard times. You're chuckling, but like that is a
Sure,
like,
not-
there's an argument
yeah.
that, in a sense, on both ends have.
Yeah, but it's like still a stretch, I would say, no matter what time when you're about to get murdered by your partner.
No,
Like, stay
I
together.
absolutely agree on that it's overdone, but he is. They kind of film him as a monster at that point.
Mhm.
Now, you derailed me from what I was going to say for that.
Sorry.
No,
Sorry.
So here's the thing: is I feel that they at least attempted to earn the redemptive arcs and to show you why they fell in love again. And I think that it took a long part of this movie is watching him chase a pig around, or throw, or them going to a fair, or having dinner, or
Playing carnival games.
or going to the place from Wizard of Oz where they get all the hair done and all that. But like, it does show them at the end going through their trials and tribulations and falling in love again and rejecting the sins and
Satan.
temptations.
The decadence of the city, in quotes.
Yeah, and I have to say that for that part, for the fact that they put the effort in to earn it, I'll give them 1.
I mean, that's an
It's a good
interesting thing
argument.
you say there, Scott, because you said they reject the decadence of the city, but really they kind of enjoy the decadence of the city. That's what brings them back together,
I suppose that's a
right? They go
solid
to
point
dinner and like he can't pay, and then she helps pay for it, and I don't know, whatever other nonsense they do. But like it feels like such an unearned payoff, at least at first. So like, I mean, throughout, but like especially at first, because it's like 5 minutes from the rowboat to them, like her, kissing his fucking forehead in adoration over the guy again, and it's like, I guess
it's a little jarring for sure.
I guess this film is supposed to be a parable of sorts, or for like temptation versus,
or you might say it's kind of like a fairy tale-ish kind of thing to it.
But I think that they're supposed to represent. I think the women in this are supposed to represent the two sides of human nature, right? And I think that's
the
basically,
two humans don't involve the guy at all. It's the females in there. I like it.
Yeah.
Even Lilith.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Actually, pretty good.
But to be honest, I think that the two sides of that coin both get a real crappy shake and don't involve as much human nature as like in real life. I think this is like a weirdly like truncated and idealized version of that. So I don't know if I'm going to give it a 1 for trying, like attempting something that I think is a fairly decent, stab at a deeper theme, especially in a movie from the 20s, or is it that I think it's so ham-handedly done that it doesn't deserve a 1? Like, that's kind of where
this is going to seem terrible, but at that point in time, women didn't have the rights they do to certain things. So it's, his wife forgives him much more quickly than we'd expect a portrayal. Like, if this is a modern film, I would suggest that no. I don't agree with the theme either, or the portrayal of it, but I think I understand what the theme they were trying to do.
Yeah,
you don't have to agree to a theme to think it's like decently handled. So I think I'm going to push me over the edge. I was seriously debating the whole time, listening to both your points, trying to see which one would sway me. And I think in the opposite way of what I did in plot, I will, not even begrudgingly, but the attempt, and like I said, the attempt and the intent were there. Now, whether or not you thought it was like, our sensibilities are the same, certainly not. But I think I might be siding on a 1, so.
I also thought of another one, which I thought was pretty interesting. The animalistic qualities of men and the comparison with the dog, with the fact that he is initially called out by the city, one from the city, by whistling towards him, and the actual, I believe, golden retriever, whatever the dog was,
that their pet
was, went out to protect the wife, knowing that something was afoot.
No, right. That's all fine. Like I said, while we certainly can see the evolution of social sensibilities, I'll say, in all medium, I think it's good enough for what they attempted and laid out to do for me to give it a 1 here.
Yeah, sure. I'll give themes a somewhat begrudging but okay 1.
Yeah.
Well, Steve-O, continue talking about the antagonist.
I guess the antagonist is supposed to be the woman from the city.
Or whatever she might represent.
If it wasn't for her randomly suggesting that the guy murder his wife instead of just leaving her,
I think
reason.
I think it's implied she was probably plotting this for a while, or like leading up to asking.
I guess so.
Based on the setup.
There's a scene where she's circling sales of farms for money.
It seems like there's no actual like impetus for any of the female characters in this movie to do anything. They don't have like human lives. They're literally just there to project onto the guy, like project their theme onto the guy, right? Like, it's, why would any actual person, instead of being like, hey, leave your wife, come to the city, say like, hey, murder your wife? And like, if I got a little sense of why she wanted to murder the wife,
because she wanted him to sell the farm and to take his money and then take the money and leave. I don't think she was even in love with him.
I got that idea as well.
Okay.
It was implied to me about that, yeah.
Maybe I missed that part. But that's the other thing. She's like, I guess just the definition of a mustache twirling villain at that point. Sans mustache.
Yeah. Metaphorical mustache.
But I don't know. I don't think I'm going to give it a 1. But you guys let me know what you think.
I'm not sure either, because I thought you were going to say, like, of course, in our day and age, it's the toxic masculinity of the dude. But that's because we're probably projecting our, again, values backwards into time of this movie.
That's not, like, put as a bad thing in this movie at all, though.
I understand. So, like, yeah, you got me with the thing, like, the two women who are not, like, truly characters, or, like, at least seemingly people fully unto themselves, projecting their themes / representations of what they represent onto the male, like, the farmer guy. So, like, yeah, man, I don't know, like, you could say, like, the dueling, like, forces of the city, if you want to go deep, like, she represents, like, the dark forces, and then they have a good time with, like, the good side of the city, but I don't even know if that really is...
She's a devious woman character type.
Yeah, she's a femme fatale, pretty much, like, before they were even invented.
But not even the redeeming qualities of femme fatale, more of the temptresses, and the I'm going to steal you away from your wife, I'm going to tempt you to commit murder, and I'm going to tempt you to give me your money.
Right, but is that enough for an like antagonistic one here?
Oh no,
I don't think so. Like, I think as a character, even like as a motivating force, it's a little like stilted. It's a little like shoehorned in.
Yeah.
It could just have as well have been, as you mentioned, a literal mustache twirling villain.
Right.
For that. Okay, Scott, onto you with protagonist.
So I guess I'm going to say the couple. You might argue that maybe, given what we just said, it's just the guy, which I think the movie certainly focuses more on him. It's clearly his story, but I think it's the story of him and his wife also, like, to a pretty large degree. Now, whether or not you think she's a good, or again, fully formed character that makes her own decisions in a way that a real person would, that's debatable, and I agree there's room for, to talk there. But I think it's like 60-40, the couple, if you will. I'm going to lump them both in protagonist for now, and probably give them okay 1, because, like I said, they're the focal point. I think they were given enough to do, even with, like, the arc that you mentioned earlier, like the redemption part, as applied to themes that we just said. But I think it was good enough. So, like, but I'm not, like, tied to it, so I'll open it up now. What do you guys think about them, or if you don't think they're both the protagonists?
I think it's a better argument, especially considering the viewpoint that this movie has about women, that she isn't a protagonist. He is the protagonist. And he has a full-fledged arc, even if I don't agree necessarily with
the trappings of it.
What he stands for, or I think I have to give it a default 1 here, to use your general terminology.
I feel you.
I completely agree with that. I think that, I don't think that he's a good person, but he does have a full arc given in this. I don't, whether or not you believe that he, has reformed or changed into a different person, because
just till he grows his beard back.
Yeah,
the beard, evil beard.
I do like the actor in this. I want to give him credit. I think he did a good job. And he does, the man, or whatever he's credited as. I think it's just the man.
It's the man, his wife,
yeah,
his mistress, etc.
Does a good job in this, in the context of this film, and does have that arc, does have this, like, his redemption and all those things. So I'm gonna give it a 1, and leave it at that. I guess.
All right, yeah, I like the default 1 there. That I think there's enough, and certainly he does have an arc, and it makes more sense than it doesn't, and it's fine given the framework and the setup that the movie has.
So I guess I'm on the supporting, I believe.
Yep.
So the wife, she, I think, won Best Actress for this portrayal. She was sympathetic.
I think she was the best character.
Agency for the majority of it. Although she does. She decides to flee her husband and hop on that train. By the way, maybe I missed
Georgia.
this.
I think it was a bus, not a train, but I don't know.
Trolley.
Right. Trolley. Yeah.
They take the trolley into the city. They take the boat out of the city, but it was their boat. Like, how did the boat get to the city?
Don't worry about that.
It just floated there.
Okay.
The filmmakers certainly didn't worry about that.
But, yeah,
That's
so,
really funny. I didn't even think about that until this moment.
I mean, she does a fair job, if one-dimensional for a lot of respects. I mean, she wants wants the family together, even if her husband is straying. And then there's all the wacky townsfolk,
Yeah, exactly.
including perhaps my favorite character, the guy who's giving him the shave, who just has this weird facial expression the entire time while doing it.
Yes, I noticed that.
But yeah, I mean, basically it's either bits but most of, I guess the maid has the most, second, or the mother, or whoever that old woman was.
I think it was her like sister maybe or something, like older sister.
The random
The
old
caretaker
woman,
she lives with.
Yeah, the caretaker. She gives some exposition.
Yeah, true.
So I don't know. I'm going to let you guys talk about this.
Yeah, they were mostly fun. Certainly, I think the wife, like you said, given with what she was asked to work with, I think did a really pretty good job with that, with expressing like a range of things. Now, whether or not you say within terms of plot it's exaggerated or accelerated, still, I think she expressed what the film asked of her and the story like needed from her. And yeah, like they were like the little side characters, the barber guy and the creepy guy, and also in the barber salon was like a little touch of amusement, like a little bit of comic relief. And like I think all the characters rounded it out well enough, even if they weren't like full characters unto themselves. And again, given for what the nature of this film is in all senses of whether it being a silent film and the narrative it has attached to it. So there's something you might say, so I'll leave that for you.
I don't know what you're.
I turn it over
I don't
to
know
you
what you're
anyways.
queuing me up for, but I thought that the wife did a pretty good job, and the actress that played the wife did a pretty good job in this. She's got her own somewhat full arc, I guess. Everybody else was kind of just set deck, it felt like.
Yeah, that's what I thought you might say.
And like there's, I think the second most fleshed out secondary character, or I guess third after the old woman in the barn, is I think the pig as the third most.
He loves his pig in this
screen
movie,
time.
folks.
Hey, I'm just saying the pig is the only one with a, this movie weirdly becomes a Marx Brothers movie for like 10 minutes in the middle of it.
Yeah, unnecessarily.
There's a guy like doing a bit with a woman's straps keep falling down. He's pulling him back up, and then the pig goes and gets away and gets drunk, and the guy has to go chase it down.
Literally could have been stolen from a completely different film and just inserted in this film.
It was very strange.
The Marx Brothers footage into it.
I don't. I guess I'll give him a 1. No, it was particularly bad.
I think if you put the wife in secondary, you have to give it a 1, no matter what.
Makes a stronger case for it. If she wasn't there, it would be a 0 for sure.
Yeah, I feel that too.
It actually shows the limits, I think, of a silent film, especially a dramatic silent film, because you're so focused on developing the main characters that a lot of these can't do anything more than be set.
Yeah, they sort of fall by the wayside sort of naturally because of it. Yeah, I think that's true.
But I'm still going to give them okay 1.
Yeah, I'm giving it 1 mostly for the wife. The other ones were all right.
I'm giving it a 1, the old 1 too.
All right. Now, I mean, there was so much dialogue in this. I don't know where you're going to begin, Stephen.
Don't run away from me. Please. I believe is one of the important lines of this movie.
Yeah, because they reused that title card like 3 times.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it was not that interesting. I've seen silent movies where there are much more interesting title cards and there's better quote unquote dialogue. I don't think I can give dialogue a 1 for this film.
Now, I'm probably not either, but I do have an interesting point, is that somebody notices the sparseness of cards in this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for the betterment of the movie, they just
too many
gave
of them. Yeah.
the important pieces and let the style speak for it.
Yeah.
But is the absence of something? Probably not. So I might give it a 0.
I think that's more style, anyways. But I do agree with that.
Yeah.
Yes, I almost expected it to have more title cards like throughout, given the length of it. Like I said on the outset. So yeah, and like we've done this before or come up against it. Where should we count then? Because on the other side of the coin, since there's a lot of nonverbal communication going on, is that mostly style because no one's technically saying anything, but they are making the the body communications, like speaking with their actions.
So to that point, though, I'm going to say why I wouldn't give that, because for every single moment, like the wife gives great facial expressions at points. There's other ones, especially when the husband at the very beginning just hunched over, like just the over-the-top nature to drive a point home. It's at times almost like bad dialogue.
I guess. I mean, I see what you mean there, but I'm saying, like, I believe we did it anyways, like, where a lot of that stuff will go into style regardless. So on that front, I think it's a default 0 here, just again, because of the nature. And yeah, you're right, Steve. So I've seen, like, even using title cards, I've seen better stuff written on them in other silent movies. So
okay, Scott, on to you with style.
So I think as we talked around it, this is probably the best, or at least most engaging aspect of this film. And it's a lot of it, I would say, is why it's on the AFI. It comes from that era. And like I said, it probably pushed a little bit forward, like when the medium was still finding its, grounding and seeing what could be done and how they could use it. So yeah, it's very impressive. And there's a lot of cool shots, a lot of cool fade-ins as well. They're probably messing around with that. They're like, oh, we could do this. But it looked good. It made sense to it. There's a couple of shots that I thought were like, not odd, but like there's one early on when they're in like the little cottage, and I think it's on the maid or the caretaker or whoever. It's this weird like highly still like Dutch angle almost. It's very strange, but I noticed it. But it worked kind of like it made you feel a little bit claustrophobic, like you're trapped in a little cabin with them. So yeah, I think overall, and I'll leave the other big part of it I think to you. But visually, I think it still is an enjoyable film to watch within its silent film genre.
I do have one quick point to make about this, because I thought it was very well done in general. There's a very famous piece of music that originates from this film that Hitchcock actually used later on. It's been done in a lot of like Looney Tunes. Dun, 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 dun,
That's from this film?
I believe it's originated in this film.
Okay. I thought it was already in use or something. Like
No, well, it might have been, but I believe this is where it famously comes from.
Okay.
I was going to mention, like, the music in this is pretty fantastic. The cinematography is wonderful. There are so many tricks that later directors used to such great effect. Like, there's this shot that's like an overlay. I started talking about this earlier, so I'll finish my thought now.
I left it for you.
There's this shot that's an overlay. It's the guy, and they overlay a translucent image of the woman from the city, like over his shoulder, and like
as if she's embracing him.
Yeah, like hugging him and kissing him, and it's a brilliant shot.
That was cool.
The shot of the dog running off of the dock and jumping into the water and coming after them is so fucking good. Like really compelling, really interesting. Cinematography happening super early in film history. Like this is what 25 years after film is invented,
roughly, or so. Let's call it.
So
yeah, it's really. I think there's a lot of really fascinating stuff happening with the camera in this movie.
The car pile up was really well done, even though you can tell. Like, because obviously special effects aren't what they were.
Yeah.
But they have the cars in the forward, or they have the kind of, I guess, film in the back.
Yeah. They have,
but then they cut it to a dream sequence as they're doing it. Oh, it was really well done.
Having them navigate traffic through like fake cars was like.
Well, if you notice, it was the like, same loop of cars that they're. You
can realize it very obviously right now, but like it looked fucking pretty goddamn close to real. It was like, wow, sure. Like I've seen movies that came out 40 years after this that didn't look this good, sure. Like in the 60s that didn't look this good.
And thanks. The wife would be dead if she lived in the city. She does nothing but wander out into traffic.
That's true. She does love wandering out into traffic a bunch.
She's innocent, caught in the dirty city, like I said.
But yeah, I am going to give it a really strong 1 for style. I thought that was the best part of this movie. And honestly, if our the Mott's scale wasn't completely based on, or mostly based on narrative, this movie would probably get a higher score. The reason that's going to go so low is because the narrative of this movie
story
fucking
of it.
sucked. But it made so many strides in film, cinematically, that I want to give it full props for that in this enduring style.
So that brings me on to my recommendation. This is kind of tough because there is a group of people out there who are into film, especially cinematography,
Cinephiles.
Cinematically.
Yeah, whoever enjoys movies for like the kind of the history of cinema and how different like special effects and shots were created over time and things like that. It says worth to it. For the average viewer, I think they might be impressed by, again, some of the shots, but I don't know if it's worth an entire sit through.
Yeah, I mostly feel the same because certainly, like you said, there's a section of people who will definitely be interested in watching it mostly for historical and specifically film study purposes. Now, in general, I think you can get what it did. You can see its influence in later films and better films, of course, because as it evolved. So I think the group of people I would recommend it to is smaller in a set theory, if you will, than ones I wouldn't. So I might just be a softer 0, but yeah, if you're really into it and if you want to, check it out. But you don't have to. It's not like a must-see film from that era, which I think we said other films can be more close to that anyway.
We've seen silent films from this era that we like better.
So maybe that's my final reason, because it's not quite one of those. Yeah, it's enjoyable, like I said, but it's not necessary to see, and you can appreciate other silent films that are a little bit better, or at least, again, more well-rounded.
Yeah, I would not recommend this to more than 50% of people that I know. I guess is a good way to suss out that question. It's there are definitely people that I would say you should watch this.
But it's a small percentage, as we said,
if you haven't already. Honestly, most of the people that I would recommend this movie to have probably already seen it. It is,
film school.
Yeah, exactly. It's something. It feels like a movie that you would watch academically,
which is what we did.
Yeah, exactly. So
if you're into that, we recommend.
I'm going to say no for recommendation. It's not one of those ones that's it's going to change your life if you don't, if you see it or don't see it. But it's there's some really interesting stuff in this movie. You just have to be prepared for a fucking dumb as hell plot that is really reductive and
can be grating
bullshit. So, yeah.
Oddly enough, I do recommend it staying on the AFI because
I kind of do.
I'm okay with that too.
Aspect.
It's upper 80, what you said, lower 80s, 82. I believe.
It's actually, I think the first movie
we agree,
that I can remember on this said that's the actual number it should be.
That's a good spot for it.
Yeah. So I did a little tiny bit amount of research before this, and this was actually not on the 97 AFI list. So it was a new addition in 2007 to the AFI list, and I think that you're right. It probably does deserve a spot in the pantheon of movies because of the things that it did so far ahead of its time,
Sure.
But yeah, that's kind of where I'm going to stand. I'm going to go on a no for recommend. And
how does that bring us home? As I silently, if you're listening to this course.
Okay. Wait.
If J.E. Manzer could read Stevo's handwriting.
Sorry. It's going to be...
So Scott and Stevo both give it a 5, and I gave it a 6, which brings the score to a 5.3.
Yeah, it's fine.
5.33.
Which is...
I think it's okay.
Either better or worse than it deserves, because it is either terrible narratively or fantastic stylistically.
I think we split the difference on it, so it's fine. It could go up to a 6 maybe, but where it sits, I think
both the plot and the characters leave something to be desired, but as
a visual audio piece, it's pretty good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm Jonathan Ian Manzer, here with Steven Amosu.
I'm missing my goodbye card.
And Scott Thurlow.
And I'm going to go buy the farm myself. Good night.
Editing and engineering by Steven Hermosi. Music by Christopher Morgan. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates.